Is it good for you and your children to starve? Let's talk about that from this article from the United Nations called The Benefits of World Hunger. This is a men's dating advice channel, and we'll be wrapping this up into the topic. But I first want to explain what the United Nations is. Many of you don't know what the United Nations is. It's essentially a group, your government leaders, they send out ambassadors, people who represent your government from all around the world, everybody from the United States to Africa to China to India to everybody. And they get a seat here to make decisions about global trade, economics. They influence laws and policies, and they try to promote also social issues as well. They're heavily involved in trying to push feminism, and it seems now, poverty and hunger. And let's read about that in the article. It's actually unbelievable. To a lot of people, you could tell them this information and they would just disbelieve you. I mean, a lot of people are so apathetic, they just don't care. They're just lazy, simply lazy. But I think that a lot of people will perk up their ears and listen if you actually start exposing these people, and maybe they'll actually want to start doing something. If you have global, international, super powerful bankers and organizations, really the dark hands, the secret hand that's in your life, in your wallet, with the algorithms and all these types of people, they want you to be hungry. They want you to be poor. So let's read about this. It is read. I am going to mention him again. The author is George Kent. Please look into him. And he's from the University of Hawaii. He's one. He at least he was a professor. Maybe he still is. One of these people who's trying to make social change. That's one of the reasons we got to this point. College professors weren't focusing on, you know, having your kids succeed in the workplace, be qualified, be an excellent in their profession, where they have skills and they're ready to go into the workforce, where they're serve the public's wants and needs. College professors are more of social engineers now. They're trying to develop a culture, a lifestyle, an attitude, a mentality. You might even go as far as to say brainwashing of your children, and especially in regards to feminism and many ideas. So he's elite, and again we are going to mention him again, but he is supposedly a leading authority on international relations, peace in between nations, the development of nations, environmental issues, and a special focus on nutrition and children. Yes, he loves your children so much, he wants them to starve to death. So let's read this article. It's kind of wordy, and then it gets to the meat and potatoes, even though this is a shorter article. That's one reason we're going to go through really most of the article. Again, he says, we sometimes talk about hunger in the world as if it were a scourge that all of us want to see abolished, viewing it as comparable with the plague and AIDS. He's already saying right off the bat, hunger is not bad. Hunger can be used for our advantage. Political leaders, powerful people, the people who think they're better than you, the Nancy Pelosi, the Bidens, the Democrats, and Republicans as well. The greedy people know that hunger and these types of things, the natural desires and the wants and your motivations in life can be used against you. And they say it's comparable with the plague or AIDS. Is this why you don't want to get rid of illnesses? And cancer is a whole nother issue. That's a whole nother issue for a whole video. It's not exactly an illness, but is this why is some of this stuff manufactured? Was that little cough, that thing that went around the world? Like the coof? Is that why you didn't want to get rid of it, or did you create it? Did you create AIDS? Actually, yes, they did, and they don't want to get rid of these things. These things make them money. These things also allow them to continue to do scientific research that is extremely immoral, and these are essentially war crimes. These are as bad as any war crime. These people are monsters. But let's continue. They say, but the naive view prevents us from coming to grips with what causes and sustains hunger. Hunger has great positive value to many people. Um, let's continue. He says, indeed, it is fundamental to working on the world's economy. So he knows that hunger and what you eat and what you consume and the price and the availability of those goods can be used to shape your life, to shape your community, and to redistribute wealth amongst the whole entire world. These people want it, so they, all these nations are about the same. They have the same lifestyle, and you might say, "Oh, that's good. We're going to be all equal. We're all going to be global citizens, and this is such a beautiful thing." Well, what about the people who save? The people who work extra hard, the people who sacrifice, the people who are creative, the people who are innovative, the people who are smarter, the people who develop their talents, the people who sacrificed to develop the technology or the process or the company. What about the people who own things? Of course you can't own things. You're going to own, just like they said, Forbes, you're going to own nothing and you're going to be happy about it. And you're going to be hungry too, if we want you to be hungry. They say hungry people are the most productive people, especially where there is a need for manual labor. So if you're a hungry person, are more motivated to do physical labor. And they like this. They like that you'll do physical labor. They like that you'll continue to work and physical, service-oriented jobs where you'll keep their hotels clean, that you'll keep their toilets clean, that you'll, make them coffee at Starbucks. These types of people, this is how they view you. They literally are openly talking, and this is how brazen they are. This is how confident they are. People like Trudeau can openly go in front of the world and talk about the Great Reset. This is essentially connected to all of that. This is essentially the same thing. A different way of going about it and a component of the Great Reset. And we're going to talk about men and men's dating and men's issues. But, they don't want you to become wealthy and rich and own a business and develop a product. They don't want you to be traveling and developing and, having families and children and spreading your ideas and your legacy and making your change and having your power and influence as a man. You as a man have the power to not only spread your ideas, write books, write speeches, go out there and work beyond manual labor and make products and things that you believe in, encourage, support whatever lifestyle you believe in, but you also have the power to have children and to have a legacy. Of course, they're openly attacking that. I'll make an article about that here soon as well, where they're openly encouraging middle class or average Americans and average people to not have children. They're saying it's too expensive, it's too costly, it's annoying, and that you should not have any children whatsoever. But again, you might not want to have children. Let's continue on with this article, because this is going to affect you. This is going to affect your friends. This is going to affect your lifestyle. And when these people have encouraged you and mocked you and told you to stop eating beef and that you might even need to eat bugs, these people aren't joking. I wish it was a joke. They say, we in developed countries sometimes see poor people by the roadside holding up a sign saying, we will work for food. Yeah, people who are begging and poor, and some of the people make a career out of that, but there are people out there who are desperate. They say actually most people work for food. It's mainly because people need food to survive, and they work hard either in producing food for themselves in substance level production, subsistence, or by selling their services to others in exchange for money, which of course they in turn buy for food. They use that money to buy food. How many of us would sell our services if it were not for the threat of hunger? So they're saying you're too rich. You're accustomed to, you expect, for you to be able to work. Let's say you work a day, even if you're getting minimum wage. That's a whole nother debate. Minimum wage is terrible. Minimum wage shouldn't exist. It makes you poor and it hurts your economy. But let's say you're making $15 an hour. and let's say you work 8 hours, you know, how much is that? That's um, what is that, like 160, 170? Let's say you make about 160 a day. You know, you even if you ate out 3 meals a day, fast food, and let's say you got a good combo meal, you might be spending $20 a day on food. And that's not particularly healthy, and that's pretty expensive. Most people don't eat out 3 times a day, but even if you wanted to, you'd still be have in your pocket. I mean, there are taxes involved and everything, but you're still going to be walking home, even after gas, which of course they don't care about how gas. They actually want gas to be more expensive because you shouldn't be creating emissions. You're problematic for creating emissions. You shouldn't be using so much gas. You greedy first world country person, first world country, citizen. You who is wealthier, who where your parents were smarter, your parents sacrificed, your ingenuity, your creativity, your sacrifice. You know, your forefathers and your parents died. They worked in coal. You know, they were miners. They were factory workers. I mean, they sacrificed everything so you could have some benefits. You know, they don't care about that. You're an object to them. And we talk about women being objectified. This is worse than women being objectified. This is you being objectified to a base human level. That you should, your hunger will be used against you and for the advantage of global, international, powerful people. But again, they think that you're privileged. Again, you can walk home with about $100 to spend almost every day. Almost. Depending on how you live and what you do. And some of you don't get $15 an hour from minimum wage. I understand. I live in a place where minimum wage is still about 7 hours. I live in a very poor state. But let's continue. Let's continue with what he has to say. This George Kent, this international world leader and authority. He says, more importantly, how many of us would sell our services so cheaply if it were not for the threat of hunger? He's saying that you possibly could live with less. If food were more expensive, you'd be willing to pay for it. If food was more expensive, if it was less available, if there were more shortages, and if there was less production of it, you would eventually become happy or satisfied, with spending more and more on your food, and your food becoming more and more expensive. If you were still, your needs were met, and you had enough food. But again, they don't want you to have enough food. They want you to be motivated on a base level, a slave to your basic, human basic hunger, human desire for food. They say, more importantly, how many of us would sell yet cheaply? They want your labor to be cheaper. They want you to ask for less and to require less. They say, when we sell our services cheaply, we enrich others. Those who own factories, the machines, the lands, ultimately, and own people, the people who work for them, for those who depend on the availability of cheap labor, hunger is the foundation of wealth. Now, there is some truth to this. If you're an employee, really of any kind, you're making money for that company. You're employed. Your labor makes other people money. And that's how it works. People own things. And you want to, that's why you want private property. That's why you want to own assets and buy things. And you want to ultimately have people working for you. Some people don't mind working, having a skill, having a trade. Some people don't want to own and to manage and to control, a whole business or a whole enterprise or manage people. But they're saying here that this is the foundation of wealth. They're not saying that this is bad. Laborers are taken advantage of. He's not even ashamed of it. He said that you should even be hungry. You should be, food should be so expensive that you should be working for food. That's all you can afford. You don't have much money. When you come back home, you have little to no extra money. And that you're going to be working to, wealthier. George Kent wealthier, international leaders wealthier. They continue on with this article. They say the conventional thinking is that hunger is caused by low-paying jobs. For example, an article reports on Brazil's ethanol slaves, 200,000 migrant sugar cutters who prop up renewable energy boom. And I hope that you know that we don't need ethanol. Ethanol is not good. It's, it's actually water. It attracts water into your systems. It corrodes and it destroys vehicles faster. It's only 2/3 or maybe even a little bit less as efficient or as energy rich as actual fuels. So it's gives you less, less miles per gallon, and it's less efficient, and it hurts your systems. I've seen trucks where they open, parts of the truck and literally like a whole 16 ounce of water. I mean, like water's just gushing out of this system because of ethanol. Ethanol attracts water into your system. It causes rust and corrosion, and it makes your vehicles don't last as long, and you have to repair your cars more often. But and they did subsidies that supported, ethanol production, and they mandated and they made laws. They created this environment. There's people in Brazil who are essentially ethanol slaves to produce, corn and corn and sugar, which is used to produce ethanol. In America, a lot of our corn, most of our corn doesn't go into food, isn't sold as food. Most of our corn now is sold for ethanol production because the governments pay for it and your tax dollars, and it doesn't actually help people. It actually would be much more efficient if we would just produce more gas. It'd be much better for our economies if we would actually produce gas like we can and that we should. And solar panels. And develop our own solar panel and solar power technologies. Windmills are a whole nother fiasco. They're not cost efficient. They're actually a hazard. And you don't get you don't get a return on your money. They're a net loss in regards to, the cost that goes involved with them. But again, these people don't care about the economics. These people can do their social, economy, and genetic experiments on you, on your bodies, and on your children, and you don't hold them accountable. This is the final frontier, or the big frontier, to control the food supply. They already control the finances, the industry, the production, most of the labor. Now they're going to control your food. They've already genetically modified your food to be less healthy, to make it so that you get less nutrients into your body. But let's continue. They say while it is true that hunger is caused by low-paying jobs, we need to understand that hunger at the same time causes low-paying jobs to be created. So they're saying that we could get more people to work. We could have less unemployment. Wouldn't that be great for your economy? Wouldn't that be great if you had more people working for you because everybody's starving? You can get the elderly to start working. You can get younger children to start working. You can force disabled people to start working, and all these other people to work harder and to work longer hours if they're motivated by hunger and starvation. They say, who would have established massive biofuel production operations in Brazil if they did not know that there were thousands of hungry people desperate enough to take awful jobs they would offer? They're not ashamed that they've made 200,000 migrants in Brazil into ethanol slaves where they're paid little to nothing, and that they do this day in, day out, and that they're breaking their bodies. And they're not, I mean, you know, these 200,000 migrant workers, they're not becoming wealthy. They're not getting, you know, quote unquote fair pay. They act as if this is, you know, this is almost written neutrally. It seems that way, but there's no capitulation. He never says he's sorry. He never says that you know, they should get paid more or paid better or treated fairly. And he's saying that this is almost like inspirational. This is a model. This is something that we should do all across the world. There's bad work. I mean, bad jobs, and we can create fake industries and things that we want. All we have to say is that it's better for the economy, or it's better for women, or it's better for the environment. You know, the Green New Deal type ideas, and people go along with it. We can shape and control and demand all kinds of new industries, all kinds of new jobs. Let's continue. They say, who would build any sort of factory if they did not know that many people would be available to take the jobs at low paying fees? They're saying, like, why you know, should business owners or international people or funders or bankers, people who invest money, why would you build a factory? Why would you take risk or take action? So they're essentially saying that not only are they happy that they can control and engineer society, they're also proud that they control big business. The people actually will build the factories and build the production and build the machinery and make the investments. They know that they're pulling the strings. They're the puppet masters, you know, behind all of this. Again, no nation is supposed to be able to, or is supposed to be controlling an economy. America's forefathers, our founding fathers, the George Washingtons, and all the good people of the world have openly said that governments are not supposed to be controlling and defining and determining what a economy is or isn't, or what economies should or should not be. That is not what the role or the responsibilities of a government. But you continue to allow or encourage or support them doing these kinds of things. They continue, they say much of hunger literature talks about how it is important to assure that people are well fed so that they can be more productive. This is nonsense, they say. No one works harder than hungry people. Yes, people who are well nourished have greater capacity for productive physical activity, but well nourished people are far less willing to do work. So, what does that mean? He's saying that if you're well fed, you have more strength, you have more energy, you do work better, work smarter. You're less likely to injure yourself on the job. But if you're motivated by starvation, you'll work desperately. You'll work longer hours. You'll work harder. And, you know, you'll be more determined. So it completely avoids the rioters. Again, these people used to talk about how they loved people like Charles Dickens and the people who used to speak about making the world a better and a safer place for the poor and the downtrodden and the factory workers of the world. You know, he's openly saying here that it's ultimately better for labor and better for an economy and better, in his opinion, that you are motivated by hunger than if you were well fed. He doesn't care about your happiness. He doesn't care about your success, your personal wealth. George Kent and these governmental leaders, they don't care. They say the non-governmental organization Free the Slaves defines slaves as people who are not allowed to walk away from their jobs. That you're forced to you know, by threat and by control and by manipulation, or maybe you don't even have any better options. You could argue that that is, puts you into slavery, that you don't have other options for other careers and other jobs. Well, if everybody's just working for food, then there's no specialization, or there's going to be far less creativity. People aren't going to be, making fun little doodads and fun little, uh, you know, little products that you don't necessarily need. All the labor and all the work is going to be going into making food, because food is going to become so expensive. They say it estimates that there are about 27 million slaves in the world. And it's sad because I don't know if y'all know how bad it is. There are people out there who are actually slaves, people who are actually bought and sold, and we don't talk about it anymore. And the traffickers, people who actually realize how bad things are and can be out there. I do recognize that there are privileged people out there. There's people out there who are going to shut down and stop watching this video right now because you mentioned trafficking. It's just something that they just don't want to hear about because they never have to see it. They never have to hear about it. They never have to worry about it. They most certainly don't own a boomstick or any items of self-defense so they could prevent, their children being taken from them. They send their kids to public school and to daycares and then the colleges, and they still think the world is still fine. They don't think anything's wrong. They say including those who literally locked into workrooms. Yeah, you can't leave the workroom. You're forced to work. You can't leave. Are held as bonded laborers in Southern Asia. And again, all these people for some reason try to defend China, but China does these practices and has done these practices, and they've eliminated and worked hundreds of thousands of people to death. If you don't support the Chinese government, their policies and their beliefs, the Communist Party, yes, China is led and controlled by a communist party. You're forced to work to death. They say, however, they do not include people who might be described as slaves to hunger. That it is those who are free to walk away from their jobs, but have nothing better to go. Most people who work are they slaves to hunger? They say for those, that's a good question, but they say for those of us at the high end of the social ladder, he admits that he's of a high social class. He's a privileged college professor with high connections, and that's how most of these college professors are. They're connected to the United Nations. These are the same people who brought us Marxism and communist beliefs that were taught to your sons and daughters even 20, 30 years ago. And I don't want to get into the, debate about evolution, but the dinosaurs, most of that kind of stuff is a verified fraud. There's, in regards to history and facts, a lot of the stuff, we really don't know the facts. I mean, we really don't have that type of information. And the writings and the histories and the books and a lot of the things are hidden, lost, or are hidden. For example, the Pope has access to hundreds of books that would change history, that would change the world as we know it. But none of that is released to the public. None of that information is ever released to the public about what went on in the past and how people lived and what people thought. He has access to hundreds of books. The Catholics conquered and controlled most of the modern world for hundreds of years, and they destroyed most of the books, but they kept books for that the popes and extremely high-level clergy and the cardinals could access and read. Well, let's continue. They say for those on the high end of the social ladder, ending hunger globally would be a disaster. He's openly saying to his fellow constituents, his fellow rich people, his fellow fat cats, his fellow powerful, the communists would call them pigs. Again, this is the Hunger Games. This is the Animal Farm. In real life, some people are more equal than others. He doesn't say that he's sorry for being on the high end of the social class. He's not sorry about being rich or powerful or having position or affluence. He's not sorry for creating starvation and making your food more expensive. He's not sorry for hurting your economies and creating problems, forcing or subsidizing, ethanol, which, makes beef, reduces the availability of corn, so your beef is more expensive, so there's less corn for you to eat, there's less food for livestock. They don't produce that corn to feed animals, they produce that corn to make ethanol and the sugar cane and everything else. They don't care. They say if there were no hunger in the world, who would plow the fields? Who would harvest the vegetables? Who would work in rendering the plants? Rendering means like, it's not the best word to use, but what he means is like chopping, producing, gathering, getting the plants. Who would clean our toilets? Who would do the basic jobs? Everybody beneath college professors and these feminists, if you graduate as a feminist and you think you deserve to go to a high level job, you want to, equality. Women want to become these leaders in these United Nations and in these powerful government organizations, and these kinds of people who are determining that you get to starve. They say no wonder people on the high end are not rushing to solve the hunger problem. For many of us, hunger is not a problem, but an asset. So this is an article that leaves a lot of open ends. You could argue that he is saying this in a more neutral way to expose the issue, to get people talking. You could argue that he's writing this to expose the wealthy, to expose the rich, to expose the privileged. But he doesn't capitulate. He doesn't say that he's sorry. And in this political environment, where the word, if you even use the word slave in a historical context, or you talk about words or jargons in a historical context, when you're not using them to address or to provoke or to trigger anybody, if you're talking about facts and history, there's people who openly freak out and attack you and try to throw you out, even if you are being nice and just discussing things and discussing history. So he openly gets to talk about these types of things. He openly addresses these, and he openly proposes that you should be a slave. That you should be a slave to your hunger. And what is this going to do? If you're a slave to your hunger, you're not going to have conveniences to travel, so we'll get less carbon emissions. You're not going to have enough money to feed more children, so you'll have less children or less relationships, and you're not going to have enough money as a man to impress women to, want to date you. And as much as all these modern people would like to avoid the biology, women, even if you don't want to get married or don't want to marry this man or don't want to live with him or be with him you just want some fun. And a lot of you men out there, of course, you do just want some fun. But these women, in their lizard brain, I guess you could say, people like your basic carnal desires, even if you're on birth control, you want a man who's wealthier than you. Because you ultimately, want him to be able to protect and to provide for you. And you men out there, If you're working just to survive, just so that you're not starving, do you think that you're going to have many options? Or do you think you're going to have more options in regards to dating or for or family or for relationships? No, you're going to have less. You're going to be worried about just food, just survival. You're not going to be worried about, all these expensive trips and flying. They don't want you as a man going out there and finding a kind-hearted, genuine woman from another country. They don't want you, and even if you want to be a international playboy or seducer, they don't think that you should be able to do that, especially if you're having children with women all across the world. I'm not suggesting that's necessarily the best thing to do, but there's people who want to do that, and there's women around the world who would like that as well. So that is a possibility. But the thing is, why ultimately why I made this video is, why aren't you talking about this as men and as people? George Kent, who is seen as an authority on nutrition and children, he's written books about the from freedom from want. He's trying to change the whole attitude. What and you're saying to yourself, how can he write a book about freedom from want if he's encouraging people to be hungry and to people to work for basic survival, and if he wants people to starve? He's talking about that you should be free from your desires to want all these fancy products and the new car and luxury goods. That that essentially that you're privileged and that you have to make less decisions. I've seen these kinds of weak people. I went to college. I've seen them complain. If they go to a restaurant and there's more than 10 items on the menu, I've seen them complain that they're afraid to make a choice. There's too many options. I guess you want to go to a soup kitchen where everybody gets a old piece of bread and a little bit of cheap soup. Some water with some vegetables and a little bit of salt in it. No black pepper for you. No, that's a luxury. That causes too much green emissions. That's a carbon credit. You don't get any black pepper today. Maybe next week. Maybe next week you'll get a little bit of black pepper in your soup. I hope that you know that they're openly talking this way. Everything becomes a carbon credit. They want you to have a carbon credit card where they evaluate how much carbon emissions you're producing and restrict you on purchasing and travel and what you can do and how you can live in regards to emissions. They have all kinds of different measures and powers set in place that they are implementing to control you. Now, I don't want to go out on a limb and promote people to be quote unquote activists, but I want people to be free. I believe in freedom. I believe in justice. I believe in people achieving and having a beautiful life because you did work hard and you were creative. There was somebody who wrote an article recently and a post and some things on Twitter, and people have been talking about it, and it's true. Your grandfather was able to raise not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, but maybe five or more children and live fairly comfortably. Those kids would still get to, play baseball and play football after school. They didn't worry about starvation. They had TV dinners. Yeah, I'm talking about maybe it goes back as the 50s and 60s and 70s, maybe even the 80s. Yeah, 1980. Your grandfather was able to raise 5 kids or more. My grandfather on my dad's side raised a dozen children. They were poor, but they raised a dozen children. And they didn't starve. They didn't have a great life, but they didn't starve. They don't want you having a dozen children. To them, that's obscene. To them, that's scary. To them, that's dangerous. And they're bringing in more and more people from all across the world, and they see it as their responsibility to make everyone equal. No matter, again, how creative you were, how much you sacrificed, how hard you worked, the ingenuity and the creativity of your family, or of your product, or of your property, and you using those assets for your benefit, it doesn't matter. That's why they're pouring in immigrants from all across the world to take advantage of first world countries. And if you are a smart, ingenuity person of ingenuity and creativity, if you're quote unquote a white person, or no matter who you are, there's rich people of all kinds of different races. You're the problem. And again, I'm not rich. I'm poor. I don't have a good job. I've never had a good job. I've never even made 50,000 a year in my life. And I'm willing to work for low pay. YouTube pays me almost nothing. I just made a YouTube short that surpassed over 1 million views, and I tried to talk to YouTube, and they would not tell me what the conversion rate was. Like, how many views on a short does it take to make like $100? And I make little to almost nothing on YouTube. I hope that you know that these global leaders, you know, they don't see you and your children as more prosperous, especially if you're native to your own country, if you're middle class, if you're making 50,000 or even 30,000. 30,000's too wealthy to these people. I don't know if you've noticed, but they've started moving down the taxes. At one point, 150,000 used to be considered wealthy, so we'll tax you an awful lot. In the United States, we have a progressive income tax. The more you make, you're not a good person helping the economy and making the world a better place. The more money you make, essentially, you're the worse of a person you are, and the more responsibility you have to the community. It used to be like 150. Then they moved it down to 100,000. And essentially now, if you make more than 75,000, they're trying to bring it down to essentially 50,000. That you're rich. If we continue this with hunger, if you make more than 30,000, it could go lower. A lot of you in first world countries in America, 30,000 is poor. It is poor. Let's say you're making 20,000. That's desperate to a lot of people. A lot of people are living at that $20,000 a year level. You can't afford to repair your car. You can't afford to go on vacations. You can't afford kids. And these people might want you to live for less than $20,000 a year. Maybe you shouldn't have a car. Maybe, if you can't afford a car and can't afford gas, maybe you should have to move to an urban area and work for slave labor. You don't what if you say I can't afford a house on 20,000 a year? I can't afford rent. Well, maybe you shouldn't be affording rent. Maybe you should be a slave. Maybe you should be a slave. This is a college professor. This person is teaching your kids and is being paid with your tax dollars. And again, I'm not encouraging you people out there to be so much an activist too much, but you do need to speak out. You do need to say something. You do need to get your kids out of colleges and educate them and have them not only know, not only consider what you're saying, hopefully oppose these people. Feminists is all part of this as well. They're arguing that it's good for the economy now. It's good for you. It's even healthy for you to have an abortion. Especially if you're white or something. That's healthy. No, it's not healthy that the immigrants and the people and the the refugees, as they like to say, from foreign countries. Well, it's not healthy for them to have abortions. That's healthy for you to, it's healthy for you. If you're a middle class person, or if you're a white person, or if you're a person who's like an average American, or whoever you might be, if you understand English fluently, if you understand English pretty well, you're probably a problem. So I hope that you understand who these people are. Freedom from want. Isn't that an interesting way? His book from George Kent, an interesting way of saying that he's going to remove all the choices from you, all the choices that you have to buy different products. When you go to that Walmart, when you go to that supermarket, and you have 10 different options of peanut butter, and there's a whole lot more stuff in the world too, I hope that you know, if you travel the world. What you can buy at the supermarkets is just what can be mass produced and what people buy. You you go to the supermarket, there's 5 different types of potatoes. And out there in the world, there's actually a couple hundred different types of all kinds of vegetables, potatoes, corn, everything. But I think that that might not in the future, if these people get their way, you're not going to have 10 choices of peanut butter. And some people might say, "Oh, if you bring it down to something like that, oh, that doesn't matter. I'd be happy if there was only 3 different brands or a government brand of peanut butter." Oh, okay. Let's go full communism. The government gives you creamy or crunchy. There's no extra crunchy. There's no extra smooth. You get to have the United Soviet States of Russia. There's no or the United Soviet States of America, the USSA brand peanut butter. And where your leaders are so smart and so beautiful and so brave and so courageous, you know, that you're allowed to even have a jar of peanut butter this month. Not this week. Oh, no. Only 1 jar of peanut butter, for the entire month. And milk? No. That's only on holidays. And beef? No, 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 no. You don't get any beef. You're a pleb. Um I hope that you understand who these people are. And this is why they talk about things like the January 6th. This lie, it was a FBI inside job, and they lie about these types of things because the people who care about freedom, the people who are smart, the people who have, revolutionaries' blood, the people who, fought for revolution in America, got rid of the British, who believed in freedom of commerce and freedom of trade. The Boston people who did the Boston Tea Party. You have that kind of blood in you, and you have that kind of legacy. You have that history. They don't want you to remember that. Your kids are not taught about that. Your kids are not taught about the Declaration of Independence in public schools. And they fear that you might take action against them. I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm not encouraging people to take that type of action, but at some point, it might become necessary, especially if they impose these things upon you. It's one thing to ask people to live this way, but they don't just ask people to go into this quote-unquote Green New Deal utopia, this carbon credit communist system and all these things that they want to do. They impose it upon you with taxes and regulations and ambitious mayors and governors and city officials. They impose these things upon you. And they control who gets hired and who gets fired with HR departments and things like LinkedIn and all these little organizations that they think are so stunning and so brave and so wonderful. And they take over them. You think it's bad enough that they disrespect you and they mock you and that they take over your Star Wars and your Star Trek and your Lord of the Rings and your Batman and your Superman and your Iron Man and and Thor and everybody and everything else. You think it's bad enough that they take over your entertainment? Oh yeah, it's bad. It's bad. But this is only the beginning. You think it's bad that women hate men with feminism? And when we talk about slavery, people make fun of you if you say that they ultimately are trying to make men into slaves. People used to make fun of you. We have clear, 100% verified, 100% open to the public. Of course, they're going to lie about this, just like the Great Reset. Trudeau openly told the world, Trudeau out of Canada, the Prime Minister himself, told people what the Great Reset was. And they had even a few articles and a few things on the internet about it. But then when people started questioning and kicking back and exposing, you know, you're you know, you're not supposed to challenge them. You're not supposed to disagree. You're supposed to accept. You're not supposed to pay attention, you know, when they even if they talk publicly, you're not supposed to publicly, try to oppose them or to spread your information and your beliefs. You're not supposed to disagree with them. They're already telling you know your place. Know your place, slave. Know your place. Because you don't deserve to live in luxury. You don't deserve to have fresh, clean water and food, fresh and healthy food. You don't deserve to have families. You don't deserve to have children and a legacy and affluence and influence and power. You don't deserve to have tools and objects and cars. You don't deserve to have gasoline. You don't deserve to, you know, have a kitchen knife in your own kitchen. You don't deserve to own property. You don't deserve to own a house. And this is the kind of thing that is being taught to your children with the freedom of want. And I'm wrapping up this video and talking so much about this is because this type of message to an innocent child can seem enticing. A child, somebody who has never seen or heard or might have never seen or heard of anybody making $50,000 a year or more. They've never heard of the millionaires or the rags to riches stories. This kind of stuff is not what people hear about anymore. It's not what people dream about anymore. It's not what's promoted. It's not even what's allowed anymore. When's the last time you've heard somebody talk about... there are people who do become millionaires every year. But do they promote that? Do they encourage you to want to succeed? Do they allow for the economy for you to own property and to own things and and have a success story, produce a product, and help people and give people what they want? That's what an economy is all about. Your children are not only told to hate capitalism, but they're also being told that you would have a better life, an easier life, if you didn't have all these choices. Why do you as a person want to have the choice to, if you're driving down the street, you have the choice of sushi or burgers or Italian food at the Olive Garden or a barbecue or whatever it might be. Chicken tenders. I mean, whatever. That might be stressful. That's what your kids are being told. They might say, that's not good. That's not healthy. And they're going to work into like animal cruelty. They work into every type of, kind of little manipulation they can into this. They're going to say that wouldn't it be nice, where you didn't have to think freedom of thought. You don't have to worry anymore. Your your labor leader, your slave labor leader will tell you what to think and what to feel and if and who you get to breed. You don't have to think for yourself. You don't have to, produce. You don't have to create, you know, in a creative way. You don't have to take risk. You don't have to take all these dangers upon yourself. You know, your slave labor leaders will keep you safe. Will make the world an easier place to live in. Don't you want to be safe? Don't you want to, be a part of our community? And there are people who are being enticed into this. I never thought this would happen in America. Especially in America where we supposedly still have all this white guilt, and it's obvious that the powerful business leaders and the powerful government leaders and the rich and the actual privileged people, they actually don't have any guilt for the wrongdoings and the slavery and the bad things that have happened in the past. The middle class people do, the poor people care. And I'm not talking about all the rich. There's good millionaires out there. There's good people out there who are wealthy. I'm talking about the people like at the United Nations and these powerful political positions and these global international bankers and the people behind the scenes, the dark hand, the shadow people, the puppet masters. These kinds of people don't really care. They have no shame in saying that you need to be a slave and that your kids should be slaves and they want you to be slaves. This should be shocking. They're not going to put this on international news. A lot of news organizations, your CNN, your MSNBCs, your BBCs, your Fox Newses of the world, don't usually talk about the United Nations. And almost nobody criticizes them. And yet, they're one of the most powerful people, and they're gaining more and more power. And eventually they will become the, new world order, where they control all of your governments. And they're going to have everybody as slaves. And they're going to get to control and pick and choose who gets to survive and who gets to die, and who gets privileges and who doesn't get privileges. And they're going to control the world's population, so you can't resist them. You won't have enough money to tell them no. You won't have enough money to buy yourself tools and objects to fight back and to resist them. You won't have enough, freedom, to defend yourself and to defend your family against them or the mob. You won't want to defend yourself against the mob because you yourself are starving. And you don't have any money. In fact, you might never get to see money in the future. Your kids might not even own any money. They'll just be working in a death camp. Work till death. You don't get money. You don't even get to buy anything. Here's your rations. Here's your porridge. Here's your slop for the day. And some dirty water. This is unbelievable to me. I want to make the world a happier and a better place. And these are the types of people who are highly funded, highly organized. Your taxpayer money is going towards them. You fund these people. Your politicians are making almost $200,000 a year, and that's just the beginning. They're making all kinds of extra money from global and international and shadow organizations and shadow governments and Chinese money. Your politicians are becoming millionaires. and they consider themselves the elite. You, the average person, you know, this is the animal farm. You're less equal. You're less important. After you've served your purpose, you're going to get sent to the glue factory. I didn't think that this was going to happen. Maybe it won't happen. Maybe we'll stop this. Maybe we'll prevent this from happening. But this is scary. Why aren't you people talking about any of this? You're going to sit back and let your kids watch Disney cartoons and sing little songs and little pop songs with crazy little messages, things that you don't pay attention to, like in Justin Bieber's song about Yummy. Yeah, I'm going to mention that. And you're not going to pay attention to what's really going on. You're not going to say anything. You know, we're still going to vote Republican or Democrat. Both of them are crazy, but clearly, currently, I mean, both of them are wrong, but clearly the Democrats are in power. And clearly, the Democrats are destroying, the nation. But you're not going to say anything. Probably. You're probably not going to do anything about it. And that's why these people are so bold. That's why George Kent, at a university, college professor, lots of connections to, some of the darkest, most corrupt people that you can imagine, who writes books, has affluence, has power, making a lot of money, gets to write a little article on here, on the UnitedNations.org, and openly gets to tell you that you should be a slave. He's not afraid that you're going to do anything or say anything or oppose him or disagree with him. He knows that you're not going to become the lawyers and the judges and the government officials to oppose them. They know that they control most of the voting process with a so-called elected officials. They know that it's almost near impossible for you to raise enough money on your own to even get a decent position in government. And for you to get enough popularity on a social media platform like Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, they control the algorithm, or TikTok. They control the algorithm. They get to determine, who's popular and who's not popular. So this is a scary world. I wish it was better. I don't know what else I can do besides exposing this and speaking out and trying to help people. And you men out there who do want to succeed, you want to be happy. Some of you men, you might not care about having a family. Okay. Or having children. But you care about your ideas, right? You want your lifestyle to, you want yourself and men in the future to be able to go out there and have some fun. I mean, that's what a lot of feminism was about. Women and men going out there and having no responsibilities and having birth control and going out there and, doing whatever the heck you want. It's you're not going to have that kind of freedom in the future. You're not going to have those kinds of things available to you in the future. uh, your children, your sons, your daughters, your friends, the boys of the future, they're not going to be able to go out there and just, go to parties and social events and quote unquote pick up women. They're going to be in slave camps, working to death, just for their own hunger, just so they don't starve. If you don't stand up and speak up. That's why I encourage you people out there, you men out there, to have a little bit more morality, have a little bit more culture, have a little bit more about you that's, more than just basic survival. A lot of you men out there, you listen to the pickup artist, you listen to the, the pump and dump people, you know, you listen to the seducer type people. What kind of culture are you creating? What kind of lifestyle? What kind of world are you working towards or working for or creating or encouraging or developing or supporting? What are you doing to make the world a better place? Hope that you care about freedom. Maybe if you have your fun, you don't care what happens to the world in the future. If you got a couple Instagram hotties and a couple TikTok thoughts and you got some good memories, you know, a generation, imagine that, a Gen Z grandpa over there. It's like, oh yeah, I got, I didn't have, even if you had kids or didn't have kids, it's like, oh, I got, Sandy Q, and she had 2 million TikTok followers. And that was the best time of my life. And she was crazy. She used a strap on. And is that really the kind of life you want to have? Is that really the kind of is that really what is you think that makes the world a better place and the kind of life that you want? It's like, yeah, I worked at McDonald's my whole life. I worked at the United Soviet States of America, you know, fast food company. But I got to have you know, some kind of relationship with so and so. No, of course, no kids, none of that. No family, no property, no homes, no nothing. You didn't leave an inheritance to your kids. You didn't, or you didn't have any kids, or you set up when you died. You didn't have enough money to set up a charity. You just died. You're just forgotten. You just died, and your life didn't amount to anything. You didn't support freedom, or technology, or creativity, or ingenuity. You didn't spread any ideas. You didn't spread any good information. You didn't help anybody besides feeding yourself because you're a slave to your hunger. Is that the kind of world that you want to have? Or you want other people to have in the future? That that's so bleak to me. That's so bleak. But let me know. Because this is the kind of world we're headed towards. This is the world. This is the brave new world we're marching towards. And they think it's beautiful. So let me know what you think. What can we do to stop and prevent this? What can we do to fight against these people? Let me know what we can do. Please help me to make better content. Let me know down below. What would you like to see me talk about next? What video do you want to see next? What do we need to talk about? And what can we do to make the world a better place? Please get in that comment section. And if you did find this a worthwhile video, please like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share the video, and tell a friend. I'll see you soon, everybody. Have a beautiful day. Stay safe out there. Don't stay hungry. And please do something. Please do something. If you think I'm crazy, at least consider what I've thought or what I've said or what they've said. Don't take my word at it. I'll include the link down below. Read this again. Read the article. Read what these people are saying. If my YouTube video, if that's all I did was get you to think a little bit, hey, maybe that's all I can do. Let me know down below. I'll see you soon. Have a beautiful day. Peace out and bye.